whereas it looks like your questions are quite general and you don't have any particular scheme in mind. So where are you actually coming from here? Like, what are you interested in this process? Like, what would you like the final outcome to be for you here?
Well, basically, at the moment, I'm just asking questions, clarifying questions regarding the Tax Act. So
Yep.
basically, you can see the questions. Well, a couple of them regarding definitions, and I think someone else was as well was going to get back to me, aside from the complaint specialist, regarding trying to find the definition of the word income.
Well, this is me.
That's you, okay?
You've got me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's one part of it. So if you're able to assist me there to start with, and then we can work from there.
Yeah, so what's your ultimate end game here? So, I'm more than happy to go forward and supply some information for you. I do think the ruling's invalid, but that certainly doesn't stop me from sending something out to you in writing, so there's no problem there. Certainly, income, not everything in the Tax Act is actually defined, but...
So what I'm asking about, I know not everything is actually defined, but the Income Tax Act is hundreds of documents of pages revolving around an act about income, and there's no definition of that particular word. So I just find it a bit strange or perplexing that there is no definition for what the act revolves around.
Yeah, so that is a tricky thing with tax law, that they may not actually define every term, but usually how it works is if they don't define a term, then people will go off the common usage of that word. So, that just stops them from having to list every different way that something could be stated. But once we get all that out of the way and I can provide the answers for you, I mean, what are you looking for here? Because it feels like, did you just want reassurance that it's okay to pay tax, or, I mean, are you looking to think that maybe you shouldn't be paying tax?
I'm just asking for evidence at the moment regarding the word income, and also the applicability of the tax code or the tax acts to me or anyone in general. So it's sort of like not generalising this necessarily as to myself, but also just the evidence that the tax acts actually apply to me or anybody.
Are you thinking that they might not apply to you?
Well, I don't know at this stage. That's why I'm asking for the evidence.
Yeah. So income definitely is not. There's no definition of income. You're absolutely right there. But
Okay.
there are some pieces of legislation that talk about income and how that's worked out, and they're usually right at the start of they're not usually. They are right at the first part of the income tax legislation. Now, have you had a look at the legislation? Like, it sounds like you're interested in that sort of thing. Have you gone to it and looked at the...
Yeah, I've had a look at...
It is complex.
I've had a look at the legislation, so I've had a look at the definitions within the Tax Act, but also within the tax... I think it's called Tax Administration Act, which has got a whole heap of definitions. So income is not in there as a definition in either of those that I could find. There is
anywhere.
Yeah, so there's definitions such as assessable income, taxable income, that type of thing, but it doesn't actually state what income is within the Act, and it's not a definition that has been enacted in the Act. So that's basically what I'm after is that definition. So
yeah, so there's just not going to be one.
All right. So if there's no definition for income, how do we know what income tax is? If that makes sense. If there's no definition for income, what is income that people are getting taxed on?
Well, I mean, they do talk about what you need to include in your income tax assessment, so that is included in the legislation, rather than, the exact word income. And certainly, given that, as I said before, given that there's no definition of that word, it just would take its common meaning.
Okay, so
whatever it says in the Macquarie Dictionary, that's what it means to us, as well as to everyday people.
So what does the Macquarie Dictionary say? I haven't got one in front of me.
No, I don't either, but we can just have a look while we're online.
Sure.
So, still, at the end of the day, I can give you those definitions, and I think that you would still find that you're in the position that if you're a PAYG earner and a taxpayer in that regard, that your employer will continue to deduct tax from your pay going forward, and that might not necessarily change.
Yeah, well, I'm just going through the income part of it at this stage. Just a definition, and then we can go on to the other questions after that.
Okay. Looks like the ATO has a question on their website. What is income? But if we want something a bit more dictionary.
So basically, obviously the ATO, I've had this discussion with someone yesterday and others as well, that the ATO themselves they're basically saying that they can't write legislation, so they can't enact certain things into law. So whatever is on the ATO website as a definition of income, that's not like a legislated definition. It's just the ATO's definition. So I just want to make sure that that
is true. We don't actually make the law, but we certainly do interpret it.
Yeah.
So it would be an interpretation or review. Absolutely. So that's correct. So certainly Google is telling me that income is money received, especially on a regular basis for work or through investments.
Okay. So is there a definition for money?
Well, I think you know what money is.
Well, yeah, I know there's certain things that are money. I'm just wondering there is obviously different interpretations of what money is. So what's the definition for money that's used within the Act?
Money is not defined. Well, let me just go to the definitions to double check, but I don't think money will be defined because, again, it's a word that would just take its common usage. I mean, most people would know what money is without us having to necessarily define the word money.
Yeah, however,
wouldn't you think?
Yeah, money has got different terminologies within different, how people have been taught what money is. So money, so you can have a currency, but that may not necessarily be money.
Well, I think most people would accept currency as money. I think that would be fairly standard. Don't you think? Or, an amount in a bank account that might not be realised money, but you withdraw it out and it's money.
Yeah, there's certain factors that money must have to to qualify it as money. So not all currencies have all those factors within them. Like money is meant to be a like a store of value, and currencies within our system have a depreciating value over time. So if you held on to money long enough, what we call money, if we held on to currency long enough, it would not hold its value. So it's not actually money. So that's why I would like to.
Money's not money.
No, I'm saying currency. So like our Australian dollar or the American dollar, for example, the American dollar since its inception in 1913 has lost 97% of its value, 97% of its purchasing power. So that dollar is not a store of value. It's actually based on debt. So it's a debt currency.
Oh, this is it's getting a bit complicated for me, I'm afraid.
Well, that's why I'm asking the question. You're saying, talking about money.
Yeah.
Where we say, like what you must say, that Australian dollar is money, but it's a currency. It's a fiat currency, and even since its inception, since we dropped the pound and went onto the dollar in the 60s, it's lost 60% of its over 60% of its purchasing power. So it's not a store of wealth. So under the definition of what makes money being a store of value, our Australian dollar cannot be. And I'm just saying this is regarding what the terms of what makes up money, and there's a few others. So the Australian dollar cannot be money because it's not a store of value. It's like since the 60s, it's lost well over 60% of its purchasing power. So it can't be classed as money. So that's why I would like to know what the definition of money is, so I know what.
Yeah, don't actually have a definition of money.
Okay, so if you don't have a definition of money, how can you, basically, because we come back to income, is money earned. If you don't know what money is, how can you know what you're taxing?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. It's like a circular argument, isn't it? It just goes round.
Well,
you can't come out the other side and say.
Well, it's either.
Well, all I would say to you in that regard is, if you get paid when you go to work and you get paid a certain amount of money, and some tax is deducted from your pay, and it's remitted to the tax office, that's the tax that's been levied.
Okay, you've just used the term money, that I'll get paid a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
Am I getting paid money or am I getting paid a currency?
Does it matter?
Well,
I mean, you're still going to pay tax on it. It doesn't really matter what it's called, does it?
Well, if you're saying that income is money, and then money.
That's the common definition, that income is money received.
Okay, so as I was saying, as far as my previous terms of money, our currency can't be, I suppose, designated or classified as money because it's not a store of wealth. So when you say money earned, am I earning any money by getting paid in Australian dollars, or am I just getting paid a paper currency?
Well, you probably don't actually get paid a paper currency, I wouldn't think.
Well, a paper.
Will they just put in the bank account for you?
Well, paper
Not
currency.
necessarily paper.
Well, paper currency or digital currency.
Yep.
Something that's not backed by anything. So whether you call it a paper currency or digital currency, is that digital currency money? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, it's just a name, isn't it? It's just a name that we're calling it.
Yeah, it's a name that the tax office is using to denote something that they can tax. But is that actually true? So like, for example, gold. Some people would say gold or silver is a store of value because it holds its value and has done so over like thousands of years. So you could say gold or silver is money.
Yeah.
But you can't necessarily say that about digital or paper currency. So that's why I want to know what the definition of money is.
Yeah, so it's not really going to change much. I mean, at the end of the day, whatever you get paid by your employer, that's what we're going to call your income, and that's what you'll be taxed on from the tax office.
Yeah, I understand that that's what the tax office does, but I'm just asking for the evidence that, based on the terms that you're saying are common terms such as income, and then that's derived from the word money, and if you're not able to provide a definition of what money is, how can you actually tax something if you don't know if that thing actually is money or not?
Well, it's just the amount that gets reported that's being paid to you. So,
but
without getting into semantics about it, that's what is tax at the end of the day.
Yeah, I understand what's tax, but you're saying that amount, but that amount may not be an amount of money. It may just be an amount of a currency, but not money.
Well, it doesn't matter for our purposes because we're just going to tax you on that amount.
I realise that, but I'm just going by your definitions that you say you use. So
not my definition, that's just the definition.
The tax. Well, you're representing the tax office, so the tax office's definition or the government's definition of income, and then you've said to me that the definition of income is money earned or money given for exchange in work or whatever. So I just want to know what the actual definition of money is. What is money, and how can you tax something if you don't know what it is?
So, are you interested in knowing what you like? I'm happy to provide you some information, but it sounds like you would actually like to take that a little bit further and maybe pursue that or review that in a different process. Would you be interested in that?
Well, I'm just whatever process I can do to get the information that I'm asking. So I'm just going off the information that the tax office is providing regarding income and regarding money. So I'm just going through a logical sequence of what income is, what money is, and if the tax office doesn't know or hasn't got a definition of what money is, how can they then tax something if they don't know what that is?
Well, that just happens. There's no definition of money and there's no definition of income. You're right about that.
Okay, so how can the tax office impose rules and laws on to tax people's wealth if they don't know what they're talking about?
Well, what do you mean they don't know what they're talking about?
Well, they don't know they're not given the definition of what money is.
Well, because most people will know what money is.
Well, obviously the ATO doesn't know.
Well, it just goes through, there's no definition under tax law, so it just takes its common law meaning. And the common law meaning is exactly what you or I would understand money is. Or, anyone on the street would understand what money is.
However, a lot of people don't understand what money is in regard, like the terms that I was talking about before.
I think most people would know what money is.
They know what.
Don't you think most people would know what money is?
I think that they think they know what money is. But I
so
said
you
that.
Think you have got a different interpretation of what money is to most people?
I'm
What
going.
if we went with the definition that most people have of what money is?
Well, it depends if their definition is correct. They could be all wrong.
Well, it just takes as ordinary meaning, just as everyday ordinary meaning of what ordinary people think.
Yeah. So, again, regarding that, there's two different things. There's money and currency, and the currency that we use can't be defined as money, even though some people may designate that as money. they may not understand really what money is. Like how many people get taught in schools how money is made and the process of it, and what defines money as money.
I couldn't say.
So it's not
really.
It's not a school curriculum thing. So people, you say, ARCs, will probably know what it is, but they have never been taught that. So.
Yeah. So where can we go from here?
Well, basically that's like one thing. Obviously, I just want to know what the ATO terms as money.
It doesn't turn anything as money. Money is just a...
No, but as far as their definition of what money is it?
It's not defined. Money is just what people understand it to be.
Okay.
There's nowhere in the Tax Act you can point and say, yep, okay, I got it now. That says what money is. Now I understand what money is. There's nowhere where that happens. And, I can't think of any court cases where they've been and gone before the judge and the judge has gone, yep, that's what money is. I'm explaining it, and now everybody understands what money is.
Yeah, so you're basically saying it's the common usage of the word money, or is it
common usage? That's what I'm saying. And I don't think money is even usually. I can't think of an example even where. Money is used in the Tax Act, and it talks about sometimes what money you receive, or what money you may donate, or what money you've spent. So it does use the word money, but it uses it in the general, ordinary usage way.
Yeah. So there's two different. That's what I'm trying to ascertain. There's two different ways to define money, or I suppose try and accept what money is. One is the common use term, even though that term may be wrong, or the actual the definition of what money is as a store of value, and it has to be like fungible and divisible and other things as well. So yeah.
So what if we did this? What if I sent you out some information based on the private ruling questions that you've asked, and if there was something there that you wanted to discuss further, we can go into that, or you can send a question back if you like, and we can go from there. If you wanted to review your situation down the track, if you feel like the information we provide doesn't convince you that you should be a taxpayer and you should pay tax, then, really, you need to go to the court to get an answer for you there. Because if you're just looking at your employer's not going to stop withholding tax from your pay, because they're required to do that by law, so they could get penalised if they don't do that, so they're not going to stop that. And if you don't, if you put things differently in your tax return, then your employer reports to us, which again they're required to do, then you'll end up getting data matched, and we'll end up sending you a bill saying, you owe X amount of dollars in tax. So you're right back to square one. So I'm not sure where you could take this eventually.
All right. Well, if I can't get any further information what money is, so that was only one part of the questions.
Yeah, I don't think it had money in your
because
original.
It was just income. That turned into money. So, all right. So if we'll just leave that one there for now.
Mm-hmm.
The other question was regarding the evidence that the tax laws apply.
Mm-hmm.
What evidence is the ATO relying on that the tax laws apply to me or anybody just because we're physically in Australia?
Why wouldn't they? What's the alternative position?
Well, I'm just asking for the evidence that that's true. So what evidence is there that the tax laws apply?
Well, there is something that comes out every year, and it's like a schedule of who's required to lodge a tax return, which we can then look at your circumstances to determine, whether or not you need to pay tax or whether you're entitled to a tax refund. So that is a document that's published every year, and I guess one of the things in that document says if you're a PAYG income earner and you've had an amount of PAYG withheld, you're required to lodge a return and be assessed. Is that the sort of thing that you're looking for here?
Okay, so we're getting down that track. So if what I'm asking from that then is, what evidence is there that anyone is bound by that document or that legislation that you've just talked about?
You're really asking quite high-level legal questions, and I don't know that I've got any answers that are really going to be satisfactory for you in this case. Like when you talk about what proof do we have that you're required to pay tax,
Yeah.
All I can say is if you fit the criteria and you're an Australian and you live in our society, then there's definitely tax laws that says you need to lodge a return and you'll need to pay tax. Okay,
so I understand there are laws, but I'm just asking what the evidence is there that the laws apply to me. So, like, for example, if someone wanted to join the army and they sign on the dotted line and they swear an oath and all that sort of stuff, and then the army has now got jurisdiction over that person because they have signed that. The military couldn't just come up to someone in the street and go, haha, you broke our military law. They haven't got the jurisdiction to do that. So that's the evidence that that military law applies to a soldier.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the evidence that your tax law applies to someone? So military law within Australia applies within Australia to soldiers.
Yeah.
But what evidence is there that the tax laws apply to me or anybody just because we're in Australia?
Well, you just have to be a resident of Australia.
Yeah, but what evidence are you relying on that is true? That what evidence are you relying on just because I am physically in Australia, the laws apply?
What do you mean, what evidence? I don't understand what you're getting at there.
Well, say for example, like within the tax code, it says, like to your words, anyone that's living in Australia is eligible or subject to tax if they're in Australia. So that's a written instrument that someone's written down. Like if I wrote on a piece of paper, you owe me $100 a week, or whatever it is, and I wrote that on a piece of paper, would that be evidence that my rule or my so-called tax law would apply to you, just because it's written down and says you owe me money?
Well, there is an instrument that comes out, as I mentioned, each year about who has to lodge a return. So there is.
Yeah. What my question was, if I was to write something down on a piece of paper and said you owe me money, if you live in, X location, is that evidence that my rule applies to you, just because it's written down?
If it was verified in a court of law and received royal assent or passed through Parliament, yes.
All right. So if it wasn't done through that way, it wouldn't, in your view, it wouldn't be accepted as a rule or a law that you need to obey. Hello?
Why?
No, I'm
if
just.
You wrote something down. I think we're really getting off track here.
No, but I'm just using your logic. So you would agree that my what I wrote down on a piece of paper is not binding to you,
I would agree.
Okay, so what evidence are you relying on that the written instrument that you're speaking from applies to me? If mine doesn't apply to you, how does yours apply to me?
Because you're a citizen of Australia and you have to oblige by the laws that are passed in Australia.
All right, so
you have to obey traffic laws, don't you? You have to obey laws about theft and stealing. You have to go along with those laws, don't you?
Well, theft and stealing was around before the government. But what evidence are you relying on that I am a citizen just because I'm in Australia?
Are you a citizen?
You
don't even have to be a citizen, you just have to be a resident. Are you a tax resident of Australia?
Well, can you define resident?
Somebody who lives in Australia? Do you live in Australia?
I live in Australia, yeah.
Okay, you're a resident.
So what evidence are you relying on that just because
you live here. That's what I'm relying on.
Okay, so just because I live in Australia, what evidence are you relying on that I need to pay tax?
Well, you don't. You have to go along with the same laws that are tax laws that are other sort of laws. So, same as you can't drive your car on the wrong side of the road, or you can't disobey traffic signals.
All right,
same as if you have a job and you earn money, they have to deduct the tax, and the tax office will use that to run the country. That's what we've got in place here.
Yeah, I understand what we've got in place, but I'm just what evidence are you relying on as far as that?
Look, I don't think I can give you the answers that you're after, because there are no answers. So when you say, how can I rely on the fact that you live in Australia and then you have to pay tax? Well, what actually happens is you have to furnish a return, and then the Commissioner will make an assessment at that time whether or not you have to pay tax. Whether or not you have to furnish a return is up to the legislative instrument that's released each year. So, you know, if you have a circular argument that says, or how does that apply to me? I mean, if you refuse to accept that you're a citizen of Australia, or you're part of the system, or that you have to obey those laws, there's nothing I can say that's going to change that, is there?
Well, I'm not making an argument, I'm just asking questions. So you're saying things like I'm a citizen and I need to pay tax. So I'm basically just asking what evidence is there that your rules apply. So basically you're saying that my rules don't apply. You've just dismissed them outright because obviously there's no binding mechanism. So
well, I think you made an example that I would have to agree with your view regardless.
Why would you? Are you saying that I can make a rule that makes you pay me money? No. So that can't happen. That's not something that's lawful. So
let's go back to what we can do to move this forward. So I'm happy to have a go at answering your questions, and maybe we can go back to that idea that I can send you something out, you can have a look, and you can ring me up and have a talk to me about it after that time. But certainly there's some things I can't answer, like I can't answer what's money. I can answer about why you're asking questions that are really hard to answer.
Well, that's why I've been trying to go to and from different people, and they've all said to try this avenue to get the information.
But so I don't really understand why, what you're going to get out of it. I mean, you still have to pay tax, whether we get a definition to you or not. I mean, the end result is the same. You still have to be in the PAYG system, and you still have to pay tax.
Okay, so what information are you relying on that I have to be in that PAYG system?
Because you have been, and you are. And if you could get out of it, you probably would have.
Okay, so are you saying that the laws apply because I am in that system?
No, I'm saying that it doesn't matter what we talk about, and it doesn't matter what I say, and it doesn't matter what definitions I send out to you, and it doesn't matter what money means, and it doesn't matter what's included in the Tax Act and what is included in the Tax Act. At the end of the day, you still go to work, you still earn your income, they still deduct PAYG, and you will still need to lodge a tax return at the end of the year.
Okay, so these are all assertions made by the tax office. I want to know what evidence there is that that's true. Just like my example where I can't force you to pay me money. What evidence?
You know, the only way you can really get out of the tax system is to not earn income. And if you're out of the tax system and you're not earning income, then you don't have to worry about any of this.
Yeah, well, that sounds like you're. Yeah, I'll try and put it a different way. You're saying that. What if regarding that rule that I made earlier, and I said, well, you need to pay me money, and the way for you to get out of you paying me money is for you to stop working. Now, would you think that would be an acceptable thing to do?
No, I wouldn't recommend that at all.
Okay, so why are you recommending that to me? That
I'm not. I'm just letting you know that at the moment you're stuck in the system.
Okay, so what evidence you're relying on that I need to pay tax and I need to be in the system? So basically what I'm asking, where does the tax laws get its authority from?
What authority does the government have to pass tax laws? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, or tax laws over me or anybody. What authority does the government have to pass tax laws over me? So I've gone through this with other people, and it might be written in the notes there.
I'm sure you have.
So and it comes back to the Constitution. They all come back and say the tax laws apply to you because the Constitution, and then I ask them, what evidence is there that the Constitution applies to me?
Oh, well, I think if you went to a constitutional lawyer and asked that question, they might be able to come up with an answer for you. But
and I've done that. I've gone through to constitutional lawyers within the Australian Federal Attorney General's office.
And what did they say?
They gave me a lot of different answers, but when we went through using logic and ethics, that there was no actual evidence that the Constitution applies. And when I asked if there was anyone else in government that could provide such evidence, they said they couldn't help me any further. So I've gone through to the...
Well, how can you expect anyone to help you if you've already done that? Like, how can you think that anyone's going to be able to give you the answers that you're after?
Because that's why...
That sounds like a pretty high authority.
Well, exactly. The ATO is making the claim that the tax laws apply because the Constitution applies. And if the ATO cannot prove that the Constitution applies, how can they support their claim that I need to pay tax?
Well, what if you take the opposite position and say, okay, we can't support it?
Yep.
So what now?
Well, if you can't support that claim, then doesn't that nullify any of the tax laws?
Let's say it does.
Yeah.
What now? So let's say, okay, you're right.
Yep.
There's no constitutional argument. You're right. Government's got no authority whatsoever to pass tax laws. You're right about that. That nullifies all of our legislation. All right. Let's say you're right about that.
Yep.
Now what? Now where do we go?
Well, then, if that was the case, then the ATO and the government had no evidence that they could extract someone's wealth or income,
Yep.
there is no evidence to support their claim, then I would suggest that the ATO should stop that practice.
But they're not going to.
Well, wouldn't that be criminal then? If they can't.
What could you do about it if it was? Could you bring some criminal charges?
Well, if there's no evidence that you can lawfully take someone's money, then you probably could do that. going on that logic, that if you have no evidence that you're allowed to lawfully take someone's money,
Yep.
then that would be a criminal act.
All right, let's say it's a criminal act. Now what? It's a criminal act. We've taken your money. What would you like to do now?
Well, then you could just stop taking the money. If it's been established that it's a criminal act,
Mm-hmm.
then just don't take my money or anybody's money.
Well, we are still going to take it. Let's say we're taking it, and it's a criminal act.
Yeah.
Now what?
So you're saying that you're happy to
No,
act.
no. I'm saying that it doesn't matter if, in the unlikely event that the whole of government is a fiction, what I'm saying is that there's still a great big organisation, there's still laws that are in place, they apply to your employer, and they apply to when you have to lodge a tax return. And that's going to carry on regardless of whether or not the fundamental issue is it's a criminal act to collect tax off people. They're not going to dismantle the apparatus. That's going to carry on.
Yep.
Mm.
All right. So even if the ATO was shown that it was acting criminally, it would still act criminally.
Well, I don't think that they would accept that argument, and I'm not sure who you would make it to. In any case.
Well, we're just going on the premise that there is no evidence that the laws apply.
Yeah.
So if there's no evidence that the laws apply, you're saying that the ATO would be happy or would continue to act criminally even if there was no evidence that the laws applied. You'd say they would still take people's money, they would still make these rules, even though if it was a criminal act, it would not be a just law, it would be...
They would carry on.
They would carry on, yep.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. Alright, so...
So you haven't had that line of argument before that, even if you work out that it's a criminal act, that in actual fact it's such an established practice, it's going to carry on.
Well, I haven't heard it that blatantly put, but it'd be just like the mafia. You could say a mafia could run a town or a county or something like that, and they could do that for decades, and you'll say, well, it's such an established practice that even if people know it's criminal, then they're just going to keep acting criminal. They don't care if they're criminals because it's such an established practice.
Yeah, but no one's going to really agree with that, are they?
What, that the mafia is a criminal organisation?
No, that the ATO is.
Well, why wouldn't they? If there was,
why would they?
If there's no evidence that the laws apply to anyone, and the ATO still took people's money regardless of being a criminal act, if people knew that, wouldn't they? Would they still believe the ATO is not criminal?
Well, I don't think that people would accept that, no.
Even if they were shown, as in your example, if the ATO knew that they were acting criminally and they kept acting criminally, people would not see that they were acting criminally?
I don't think they would see that, no.
Even if it was shown, like I'm saying, that they were shown that the laws do not apply to people, they continue to apply those unjust laws, which is criminal.
Are they unjust, or are they just not legal? It's not the same, is it?
Well, you've just said to me earlier that if I did it, it wouldn't be a just law if I did that to you or someone else. So if the ATO has no evidence that the laws apply, they'd be acting in the same manner, and it would be just as unjust.
But is it unjust? I mean, what's the end result?
Well,
I mean, don't people have healthcare and roads, and don't they have Centrelink benefits, and don't we support the aged people and disadvantaged people in society? Does that make it unjust?
Well, it does if your methods are unjust. Would you think it would be okay for example, the Salvation Army to make a rule that people must pay them so that they can continue good work, and if they didn't pay the Salvation Army would fine them or make other punishments and jail them? Would
if
you?
They were, yeah, potentially. If they were in charge.
If they are in charge, but if they as a single entity on their own, and they decided to make a business plan like the government, where they took by force people's money to do good work in the community, and if they didn't like being, or they responded by not wanting to have their money stolen, and they responded by putting them in jail or to extort money or whatever. Are you saying that would be acceptable?
It's not really up to me, is it?
Well, would that be right or wrong? Would that be criminal for an organisation to do that to other people?
I don't know if that would be criminal.
You don't know if someone used violence to take someone else's...
You didn't say that before.
Well, I said use force.
Oh, okay.
So...
But you didn't say violence.
Well, force or violence. How are you going to enforce something without violence?
Well, you have a tax system, and then you have PAYG, and then you have laws that make sure that people complete those things.
Okay, and isn't there violence associated with those laws?
But there isn't.
What happens if you don't pay tax?
You get a fine.
And what happens if you don't pay the fine?
Debt collection.
What happens if you can't collect the debt?
Nothing.
Nothing. So no one goes to jail for tax evasion?
No, that's different. That is where you deliberately defraud. That's not the same. You're just talking about, if I'm a PAYG earner and I don't pay my tax bill, what happens to me? Well, a debt stays on the system. We'll send some debt collection. And if it's not collected when you earn money the next year, we'll pick it up then.
All right, and what happens if you don't? And how do you pick up that debt?
Because you'll lodge a tax return the next year.
Yeah, but how would you pick it up? What methods would you use to pick it up?
It just gets carried forward.
All right, and so it keeps getting carried forward, and then what happens?
It does.
Sorry?
Well, until you have some PAYG income, and then it offsets the debt.
Yeah, and then what if someone decides that they don't want to be in that system, and they're earning income?
Well, you don't really have a choice.
Well, that's what. Well, why don't I have the choice? Well, that's what I'm asking. What happens if you earn an income and you do not pay tax?